Welcome back to the only show that matters. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thanks for spending some time with two old guys with an opinion. Yes, once again, back at the works for three guys in a record store. I'm your host with the most, our director, choreographer, fight filmographer, the man that wears all hats, Jason the Metal Maniac behind the camera, giving the direction.
What's up, Jason?
And the preeminent Humboldt County authority on all things physical media and a music encyclopedia. Bannon, what's up, homie?
What's up, dude? Good to see you again.
What's up? What's going on this week? Anything
Man.
cool in the shop that just came in?
Yeah, I got a good lot of used records just came in. They'll be hitting the bins today and tomorrow.
You hope,
Cool stuff.
if I don't get them first.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's here, so better get down here fast. But yeah, it's going to be a cool, eclectic mix of killer records. So put out the challenge to come down and get stuff before it's gone.
Once again, the oldest independently owned record store maybe in all of Northern California, if not California itself. Open since 1971. Get down here and see what they got. We'll get to that later. We had a great topic for today's episode that we shelved.
We will get back to it, but we had to put it on hold because...
This is our episode in honor of the fallen professor, Neil Peart, the greatest drummer to ever sit behind the kit. So what we're going to do today, if I had your approval, we're going to do top 5 Rush tracks going into the minutia. We're going to do number 1 Rush album ever. I'm sure we might be on the same page. We might be
the greatest Rush
album. No, it's not personal. It is the greatest. There's no argument. Don't argue with me. Don't at me in the comments. Don't do what the trolls do. Just accept it, buy it, listen to it a million times. That's it. And then our ending always 5 awesome things you can get in the shop. And then we'll see you next week.
So.
You want me to lead off? I will lead it off. I will lead it off because we'll always like to give the owner the last word, right? So we will. Let's just start with the 5 tracks. So my honorable mentions. We'll do honorable mentions, then we'll get into the meat.
Yeah.
Right. So my honorable mentions from Hemispheres, La Via Strangiato, however you pronounce that, amazing track. Them on all cylinders, just. Even trying to think about wanting to perform that gives me anxiety. The story behind some of that is they wanted to do that in studio in one take.
Oh my God.
And couldn't quite pull it. I think it took them a little bit before they could quite pull it off. But that's amazing.
They certainly played it live.
For sure, right? Yeah. Going deep, the title track to Fly By Night.
Just classic Rush right there.
I mean, how do you not love Geddy's vocal on that?
Yeah. If you know Rush and you don't.
If I could sing, I'd hit that note right now, but I can't. From 2112, Passage to Bangkok.
Ooh, nice.
This is Humboldt County, so you know what that song's about. A very lost track from a very underrated album, Roll the Bones. We're going with Bravado.
Nice. And
from Permanent Waves, I will choose Free Will.
Oh man, some of those hit me pretty hard in the feels, man. Rush tracks that I love. So great honorable mentions there. I'm going to start off with the track from Farewell to Kings, and I think that Greg will back me up on this. The song Xanadu.
Yeah,
it's an epic song. It also happens to be the title of a movie that Greg likes a lot. It's an 11-minute track. I don't know how to easily describe the song. It's just a sweet, kind of lovely Rush song. It's got shimmery stuff going on. It's just kind of a fantasy kind of vibe to it. So I love that. One of the most iconic Rush albums ever, Moving Pictures. I'm going with Limelight. Just, what do you got to say? Limelight rules. I mean,
I'm not going to get into anything off of this record until I've got a
And then
things to say.
I didn't actually pick 5 honorable mentions, but I got 3. And what was the one I wanted off of here? No, I don't remember.
The whole record.
Subdivisions is just a classic. The lyrics of the song, the meaning of the song, just a killer tune about sort of stratas of society and how people try to fit in, feeling uncomfortable sometimes. Let's get into it.
I got my notes right here.
I really want to talk about my top.
I know that. I can tell that it's eating you up.
Really.
We don't want to waste too much time. I got my notes. I'm prepped and ready. Number 5 for me, and you can attack this a few ways. Are you going for lyrical content? Are you going for overall song? Are you going for monster drums? Well, a song that has all of them on, again, another very unheralded record from them, Presto, which was kind of a return to their guitar-driven, they kind of moved away from the synths a little bit, but I went with The Pass off of Presto.
All right.
That album came out in 1990, year I graduated from high school with the Metal Maniac. Critically, it was more well received. Fan-wise, I think it kind of has fallen in the cracks. That song is actually about juvenile suicide and attempting suicide. He wrote it after going on a long motorcycle ride, which he loved, with a friend of his who had told him a story. He took that and kind of, so the lyrics are incredibly deep. So very great song, very underrated album. Go pick it up. In fact, here it is.
There you go.
There it is.
Deep Rush fans will certainly rate this album as important in their discography.
Yeah, it's one of my absolute favorite Rush.
Kind of goes beyond me, I'll be honest. I tend to stick with the earlier Rush. But there's
there are factions of fandom that have their, like, I only like it from here, I only want this, I only like this. I bask in the glow of their entire discography.
I'm down with it.
This is a great, supremely underrated Rush record, start to finish, no bad tracks.
Indeed. All right. So it's, well, okay, a little history. I liked Rush a little bit in my youth, probably around 10 years old, here in Tom Sawyer. But when I was about 18, my friend Andy, really good friend of mine, he's the one that really I would credit with getting me into Rush. So my first pick for a favorite Rush tune, it's not so much about Neil's drumming, but what Rush song isn't about Neil's drumming? It's just a song that, to me, off of Caress of Steel, a song that just feels like classic Rush to me. It just has this warm feel of Geddy's sort of exuberance. Neil's lyrical content is fascinating. The song Bastille Day, it's an anthemic, kick-ass rockin' tune by Rush, so that's my first pick. Good place to start.
I like to spin that record after I watch Conan, the original Conan, because it just makes me feel like that album title kind of just gives me that, Caress of Steel. What is the riddle of steel? Do you know? You should know. You better know. Yeah. That might be a topic.
I'm a guy who doesn't love Manowar, but that's another one. We'll get back to that.
I'm starting this again? God,
that was last
such
episode.
A good mood.
Sorry.
All right, I don't have the record, but Imagine Hold Your Fire. Sit right here.
All right.
I'm going Time Stand Still.
Indeed.
It's not Time Stand Still. Don't say it. It's Time Stand Still. It's very particular for a reason. They brought in Amy Mann on that track, and their voices melt so perfectly together.
I know the song, but I never knew.
Funny thing is, she wasn't the first pick.
Wow.
It was Cyndi Lauper was the first pick.
Wow.
Then they went Chrissie Hynde, thank God, because I can't stand the Pretenders.
Oh.
And then they went with Amy Mann, and it works so perfectly. I can't see that song
I can see that
sung by anyone else. the song is incredibly important, especially when you think of moments like this. You want to sit and enjoy this moment. I get the particular happies by being able to sit around and talk about music with two of my closest friends, and you want to glow in that moment. And that song is specifically written where they were running around constantly, and it was his attempt to stop, enjoy this moment, make time stand still, enjoy this moment. So
That's
great song, great record. It's got all the things. It's got cool little guitar tracks. I was listening to it this morning. Sometimes Rush is so unique in that you think a drum beat is coming, so you start to air drum it, and then it doesn't come, and then that beat after is when, and you're like, and the guy's just on another level.
He was kind of a magician that way, keeping you guessing, but it still feels right.
Another
You might
one
not
of my
expected it.
absolute all-time favorite bands is the Police, and they're very similar in the Police, where you cannot stick them in a genre.
Yeah.
Every time you think they are going to be something, they're going to be something else, and that's what I find amazing about their prolific nature. Keep that in mind. Pin that. I'm coming back around to that in a few minutes.
All right. That's a great pick. That's a great tune. Would not have expected that.
I know,
You're
right?
going
I'm
deep. You're going deep.
dropping nuggets of awesomeness.
I'm sticking more kind of with the classic stuff. I like where you're coming from. This one I picked off of one of their most classic, iconic records, Fly By Night. This is probably one of the first Rush songs I ever heard as a kid. My two cousins were immersed in Rush, particularly my older cousin Chris. In his bedroom, when I was about 10 or so, he was 4 years older than me, wall-to-wall Rush posters, Silk posters. Neil Peart is probably his biggest drumming inspiration. So this song is just epic. It really features Neil's compositional style and his drum chops. It's a song by Tor and the Snow Dog. Just an epic anthemic song. It's this kind of fantasy battle. You could probably expand more on the lyrical content, but it's just an iconic song. One of the first ones that ever, reached out and smacked me. This is who Rush is, and to this day, the song still just blows me away. It's still magical every time I hear it. There's also this incredible guitar and bass duel in the middle of the song where they effectively take on two characters in this battle, and it's just an incredible thing.
I think one of the most iconic things about this band is that Neil made it cool to be a reader. You could read Tolkien, you could read, and he wasn't so overtly in his influence like maybe a Zeppelin or where he's name dropping things. It's almost like they're Easter eggs. And you got to find them. And if you read the book or you read this or read that, you got it. And that's what I find awesome about him.
Heck yeah.
I as I do cheat, so I morphed kind of two songs into one pick.
I kind of.
From Signals and from Grace Under Pressure, which of course I don't have a copy of. I took New World Man and Distant Early Warning.
All right.
Both I think are kind of similar in lyrical content, kind of the Big Brother, Nuclear Age kind of thing. Both upbeat, super tracks, killer drumming, great time changes, and just everything you kind of want from a rock track. Sometimes you just want something to lift you, and you want it to talk about pertinent issues in the world, but you don't want to be hammered in the head with it.
Yeah.
And like most of us, Neil was a man who read a lot. He was involved in what was going on in the world, and it influenced his lyrics. And I think those two songs are really awesome.
Putting it into the context of the era that they were written.
The Cold War era. Yeah. For those of you that aren't old
height
enough.
of the Cold War. Great stuff. All right, that's all you got to say on that one. it's
I'm
kind of
bringing
funny
it hard
that
with my 1 and 2.
sometimes Greg and I battle a little bit. That you know, episodes down the line we might battle some more.
Well, I mean, there's always Manowar.
We're gonna have to hash that out at some point, but sometimes we sync up really well, and he just did a twofer. Well, my next selection was also kind of a twofer.
Finally.
I couldn't help it
You gotta-
because even though I'm really picking one track off of this record, you got a 1-2 punch right off the bat. The Spirit of Radio and Free Will.
Yeah.
I mean, those songs back to back just rocks you right off the bat. This record, I don't know, about a year ago, I realized I didn't have in my collection. I was like, what the hell? So I had to remedy that quickly. Both those songs are kind of something I mentioned already, kind of a triumphant feeling. They hit me in the feels, but the song "Free Will" is the one that's the real pick here. The lyrics speak to me. I'm not as big on deciphering lyrics a lot of times, unless certain things jump out at me, and then I kind of key in and I go, "What the heck are they trying to talk about?" But the main line from the song "Free Will" is, if you choose not to decide, you still made a choice. And
Sounds like most of the voters in 2016.
You know,
Not to beleaguer a point.
and God, I don't want to keep repeating the same words here, but anthemic, triumphant.
It is one of the most
bold
iconic
rock
Rush
tunes.
songs ever written.
Yeah, just
Without a doubt. It's amazing. It's
one
amazing.
of my
track.
all-time favorites. Every time I
I had to
listen
throw
it,
it in.
makes me happy.
I had such. You have so many. You have only so many spots, and something has to suffer. That's why that went.
Oh, exactly.
Because I needed to be the weird one where I have weird picks. So
Well, when we talked about picking top 5 Rush songs,
how do you pick 5?
I'm immediately thinking like top 30 Rush songs. Top. I mean,
And then still, what's 31?
yeah, it's just
It's like the NCAA tournament. Who's 65?
yeah.
All right, number 2. I think we're going back to this album. Spin. Subdivisions.
Yeah.
Everything you want in a rock song is in this song. It's got the 80s synth. It's got him on bass. It's got a cool guitar. They're almost doing separate things. The drums and the guitar and the bass are almost 3 separate entities that somehow mix together. The social commentary on the stratification through the pressure to adapt and conform was big.
Yeah.
Because I lived in the suburbs, so it kind of hit close to home. And then he's just a monster on the song. It's just an absolute.
I think I just watched a live clip of them playing that song the other day and was blown away.
Never gets old. I was listening to it this morning on market research for this. That's what we'll call it on my taxes. But you're just like amazed, and then you run it, and then you got to run it back because you're like, man, did I hear what however many years later, I'm still listening to the song, still amazed by what they're able to craft.
Still feels relevant.
Still feels relevant.
That's a great pick.
Number 2.
All right. I'm at 2 already. Well, we're going to the album Hemispheres. Every Rush fan kind of has their favorite Rush album, and so you can't really say this is the overwhelming favorite Rush album by fans, but this one has got to be super significant, and one of the reasons is it continues it starts off, the Cygnus piece that is split between this record and the follow-up to it. But my pick on here is one that was in your honorable mentions. It is La Via Strangiato, a 9.5-minute song. I feel like I gotta say that again. La Via Strangiato.
Yeah, I don't. I just butchered it. It's fine.
I'm sorry, everyone. Look up. Maybe you can Google it and get the pronunciation. I think
So they should have just called it Amazing and just left it at that.
The reason I picked this song is because it's been a fascinating song for years. But like I already said, there's so many Rush songs to choose from, and I just kind of said I'm going to settle on this song because, kind of like you said, it has everything. It's this winding trip of a progressive fusion jazz rock, neoclassical in composition, if you will, but it's very much Rush, as all their stuff. They're not deviating from who they are, but it incorporates some really progressive jazz elements.
What? I mean, what is running through your brain, Pam? And it's like, what's your idea for an album cover? Well, let me tell you. So we got a brain and a naked dude on the brain and a dude in a top hat. Oh, cool. Yeah, run with it.
I think there's definitely...
we could do a whole show just on Rush album covers.
You certainly could. There's something with this album cover that connects thematically with some of the other Rush stuff. It's coming out of Neil's brain.
Or it's almost Starman-esque.
Yeah. Again, I like to leave things mysterious in a way. It's open to interpretation. So that's for you guys to decide what you think this means. But anyway, La Via Strangiato, one of the greatest long form Rush tunes.
I agree. What's the hardest pitch to hit in baseball?
Slider.
Curveball. I'm about to throw you
I
one.
was gonna say curveball first, but I was afraid I was gonna.
It's probably actually a knuckleball, so I'm gonna throw you a knuckleball. I'll throw you a knuckleball right now. Number one, it's not close. I don't know what it is, but this song just punches me in my gut every time I hear it. It rocks. It's beautiful. It's epic. And if my memory serves me correct, it's probably the last 10-minute song or 10-minute plus song they ever wrote. I'm going with The Camera Eye from Moving Pictures. This song was written kind of divided between, the song's kind of actually got two parts. It's the first part is in New York, the second part is in London, and both of it was inspired by a walk through each city. Wow. And feeling the vibes that he was getting from each city, and then wrote this epic track. It's got breakdowns, it's got amazing playing, it's got a little bit of everything, and there's just something about it on a record of amazing songs.
Yeah.
I think it's the standout, and I think it's the one that nobody really gives, because you got your 3 tracks, maybe your 4 tracks that everyone kind of gravitates to on this record, and but I think that one by and far is the standout, the gem of this record that I'm gonna get to in a minute in more detail and depth. This is the one.
That's a great pick too. You're blowing me away with these kind of.
I know, right? I came out of left field. I came out of left field with my deep cuts.
Greg is a deeper, more multifaceted man than I knew until this point.
I try.
Rush really brings out his,
wait till
his
we get
deep
to the police.
introspection. Oh man.
Number one,
all
top
right,
track.
So I gotta end with this. Rush fans will relate to this. If you haven't heard this song or this album, you know, by a lot of Rush fan standards, this would be a great place to start. I'm going to give just a little bit of story on this. This was really the song that, like I said before, my friend Andy, he exposed me to Rush in a big way. But this song, when I was 18 years old, I was driving to get some Taco Bell, and for some reason the local classic rock radio station played this song in its entirety. It's not edited for radio play.
Back when
But-
you had the flexibility.
But
to
they
do
played
such
the
things.
entire piece of music, and I got to listen to the whole thing. And I hate to say I wasn't aware of it up to that point, but it absolutely blew my mind. And I've been a Rush fan ever since. It's the opening to this album, 2112, which is the 2112 suite, and it's broken up into multiple segments. And well, it takes up the whole side of the record. It starts off by just kicking your butt with some really hard, heavy rock, almost kind of a proto-metal, progressive rock thing going on, and then takes you through this epic journey, and kind of has some peaks and valleys throughout it, and crescendos, and then kind of resolves in this really satisfying way. And
Can we talk about the elephant in the room?
you can talk about whatever you want, man, because
What is up with this?
this represents their questionable fashion that they were trying to.
I'm not even talking about the lower half of Alex Lifeson in this picture, but we'll talk about what the. I mean, come on, guys.
Pretty quickly,
That's an epic stash of all
Yeah.
epic stashes on the Professor, though.
I think pretty quickly after this, I think Rush decided they didn't want to try to be fashionable, or at least to
This
try to have an image.
This picture
fashionable.
alone explains to everybody the brilliance of Rush and how amazing this band is. This album has been released, re-released, re-released, remastered, released, remastered, re-released. This picture has never changed because they just don't care. They're bringing it to you in kimonos.
Yeah.
If you can rock in a, stop with the Man-O-War. If you can rock in a kimono,
Oh,
you can rock.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
Brilliant. I love it. Before we get into albums, if you are into Rush, if you're not into Rush, if you're a little bit into them, if you're kind of, you just don't know where, you don't know the story, you kind of want to watch this movie, this documentary, everything you see on this podcast or this video show or whatever you want to call it, it's probably ripped off from the man who made this film, Sam Dunn. He makes incredible documentaries about rock and metal and music and history. He's amazing.
What else has he done?
He runs Banger TV.
Oh, okay.
He did A Headbanger's Journey, that metal doc. He's done some other stuff. I think he did another Rush film, a concert film. He's amazing. From our friends in the Great White North, he's in Canada, but they do Banger TV right now, and he's awesome on it. He's
If you
a
love heavy metal,
full-on
check out
hero
Banger TV
of
for
mine.
sure.
So yeah, check him out. But check this movie out, and it's a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
fun.
Oh,
It
yeah.
ends with them at dinner, just having a blast hanging out, kind of like how you can be friends with someone
Yeah.
for 50 years and still just
Oh,
love
man.
being around
Oh,
each other, and you could see the love in the room when
oh,
they get together.
yes, but
It's awesome.
if I could take a little time to add to that, if you were already a Rush fan, you love this movie. There's nothing disappointing in this film. If you aren't a Rush fan or don't feel like you're a big Rush fan yet, you watch this movie, you're gonna be a pretty hardcore Rush fan at that point. I think a little piece of this film that I love. This is kind of just a little tiny bit of it to look for. There's a segment where they're at Alex Lifeson's family's house when he is telling his parents that he's ready to drop out of school and become a full-time musician, play in this band and devote his life to it. And the quality of that footage and the sort of prophetic nature of it ending up in this film, looking back at what they've been through and what they accomplished in their years, you would think somebody went back in time to film that segment.
There's so many
So it could be in
anecdotes
this
like
documentary.
that in this, and that touches home with me too, because I think most of us come from families of immigrants. I'm only second generation American. My grandparents immigrated from here. Well, their parents immigrated from here. They immigrated to Canada, and to
Okay.
give them a better life. And here's their long-haired
Yeah.
hippie son
Right. Yeah.
wanting to play guitar in the best prog band ever.
I think they probably
was
weren't
amazing.
ready to hear that from him at that point, but they were also not.
I think the joke
unsupportive.
The joke Geddy Lee told us his mom didn't think that he was famous until they were on like Johnny Carson or something. It's hilarious. Go pick that up. All right, we're ready. I'm gonna steal your
Yeah,
copy
go for it, man.
because it's so more epic than mine.
Yeah, I've
Just let
actually
me
got
just-
the Japanese pressing
Yeah.
with the Obi strip on it. That's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, maybe I'll steal that. Maybe I won't. I don't have a record player. I'm just gonna sit there here while I give you a little context, right? So, I had almost 2 lives. I had my St. Bernard's life and my St. Bernard's friends. Then I had my home life and my home friends. I had 2 friends I grew up with on my street that were incredibly influential. And one of them had an older brother. And his older brother is probably the reason why I love music so much and I'm standing here. Each one of them had something that they gave me.
Yeah.
My friend George was into more of the punky, weirdy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I got a lot from that. And his brother was into more mainstream metal and that kind of stuff. So he introduced me to Kiss. He introduced me to Loverboy, Foreigner. I could keep going and going and going. And one of the records they played over and over and over again was this record. And I had heard Rush before, but this is the one that really drives it home. This record has a band today would be lucky to have their greatest hits record sound this good.
Yeah.
But let me contextualize
All right.
the importance. 1974, with John Rutsey on drums, they put out their eponymous debut, Rush, right? So you figure you got your whole life to write your first record, and your second record you got maybe a year, you got 6 months. So if you figure the cycle of make a record, tour, make a record, tour, keep that in mind while I list off these dates. So in 1975, they put out 2 records. Now the professor's on board. He's taken over the writing duties with his immense brain power. That was probably his brain on Hemispheres. So 75, they put out Fly By Night and Caress of Steel. So now in 2 years, you've got 3 epic records. They're not done. In 1976, they put out 2112. In 1977, they put out Farewell to Kings. In 1978, they put out Hemispheres. They take 2 years, put out Permanent Waves in 1980. In the middle of the whole thing, the middle, when you probably should be your weakest, you're writing records, you're touring, you're writing records, you're touring, you're writing records, this comes out in 1981.
Yeah.
And they're not done. 82 was Signals. 1984, Grace Under Pressure. 1985, Power Windows. 1987, Hold Your Fire. 1989 was Presto. 91 is Roll the Bones. 93 is Counterparts. 96 is Test for Echo. Then they take a break.
Yeah.
Then they take a break. They don't record another album until 2002. That is an unbelievably prolific, if I'm saying that word right, run
yes, indeed.
of albums and songs and tracks. And these aren't just records. They are unbelievable prog, almost masterpieces. Like every single one is just absolutely amazing. In the middle of the whole thing, they write this record.
Yeah.
They start the record off with Tom Sawyer. That's their opening salvo to your ear holes on this record. Tom Sawyer's the opening track. Are you kidding me? Like that's like your heavy hitter. That guy's in the 4 slot, and that's how you open the record.
Yeah.
Red Barchetta, YYZ, or if you're from Canada, YYZ, which is the Toronto code for the Toronto airport. Limelight, Camera Eye, Witch Hunt, and they end it with Vital Signs.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing accomplishment to
Probably
have this
if
record.
you averaged out all Rush fans' favorite albums, this would probably
I agree.
the top.
I threw a lot of curveballs, and then I came with the fastball for my.
Yeah.
But it's
amazing.
You can take the output. You can take their entire output, and in amazement, and then
They were
look at this
also
record.
influenced by a lot of music that was happening after the turn of the 80s. A band you mentioned earlier that we both love, The Police, they were listening to stuff like that as well. So they were taking things that they were hearing other artists do that was different from the decade before. Different approaches to your sound palette and recording, but they were still being Rush.
Never
They
afraid to take
weren't-
chances.
Never afraid to take chances, but they weren't losing who they were. They were just going, we're hearing other stuff, we want to pull some of that stuff in, but do it how we do it.
And
This is
especially as a
iconic record.
9-year-old kid, when you're listening to this, and they say that greatness is making the ordinary or the extraordinary look ordinary, and they did. You'd look at this album cover for days and just trying to figure out if there were hidden meanings, or if you were like, I don't know, you got the Starman, you got Dogs Playing Poker. I mean, what more do you want? Like, it's
Yeah, the
if
cover
you
art's
only are
iconic.
ever gonna listen to one Rush record for the rest of your life, I don't know why you would, but this is the record.
Yeah,
You can spin it over and over and over and over and over again and never gets
it's
old.
very true.
Never gets old.
You're making me rethink my.
This is my all-time number one. There's no argument. Don't try to argue with me. Just don't, because I'll come back harder. This is the greatest Rush record ever recorded.
Even hearing them talk about the process of recording this record is fascinating.
Again,
It's-
go
it's
into a
brilliant.
documentary, pick
It's
it up.
brilliant. I'm not really arguing with you. I think my number one pick is basically going to be the fact that I didn't want to pick the same record. As
I had a feeling that if we were either going to be right on the same page, or you were going to be a
I wanna
contrarian.
try to
Like
stand out a
I'm
little bit.
normally the contrarian.
It's hard for me to stand out.
I can't wait to hear what your number one pick is.
Well, I can't really pick a number one, but I'm going to pick 2012. I'm going to go back to 2112, probably because I've listened to it the most. Fly By Night, I've listened to maybe almost as much. It's not that I don't appreciate everything that Greg just talked about with moving pictures and also his deeper picks. But I guess musically, sonically, it's kind of like, it makes me feel at home. It's the warmth of it, the just kind of what has always felt like classic Rush feel and tone, and you know, it'd be kind of like listening to early Zeppelin over later Zeppelin or something. It just feels like home, and I think
we'll get into
I
Zeppelin
think
on
Greg-
another.
I think
I
it's-
guarantee.
I think Greg is right, but I'm going to say just comfort food, the album I've loved the longest.
It was definitely between one of these two albums, without a doubt. Obviously, for me, this means so much for so many other reasons. But this album might be the most important Rush record ever recorded. This was the album where, like I said, they put out Fly By Night, they put out Caress the Steel. Caress the Steel bombs,
Yeah.
and they're pretty much know they've got one more shot. So they can either conform and do what the record company wants to, or they can just go out on a limb and do whatever they wanted. They went out on a limb, they recorded this album, and they never got messed with again.
Yeah.
They said,
Yeah.
do your thing. You obviously know what you're doing.
Greg is right. He's bringing the salient points today, and that is very true. Like he said, the album before this, it didn't go over as well, but they had complete creative control from this point on. whatever they wanted to do, their record label was behind them. They proved themselves.
Which is when you got to shout out to a record label that's smart enough to leave its talent alone. So thank you for that, because we got amazing records after that. But man, what a ballsy move by a band of like, we're like, all right, we're gonna risk it for the biscuit, and if it doesn't work out, I guess we'll sell cars or whatever. But we had a good run.
Yeah.
And then this amazing piece of art comes out.
And then 30 plus years, 40
It's
years, they're still going.
Being dissected. It's still your favorite band's favorite band is probably either Rush, depending on the kind of music you listen to, or the Beatles.
Yeah.
It's pretty much.
And I'll say this too. This might be a little superfluous, but there are a few bands in this world that can have the run, not just of existing and performing and touring, but putting out albums. And with maybe just a couple exceptions, I honestly err on the side of give us a good run of a handful of records, and then that's all I really need from you. A band that puts out 20, 25 albums in their career, I kind of feel a little bogged down. But Rush, you can't take any album out of their discography. They didn't put out any unnecessary records. They didn't say, oh, we're under obligation to put out a record. Everyone was meaningful, well crafted. They all have songs that fit into their canon that exemplify.
I think we've talked about before, you kind of have one of two veins you're going to approach with your art. Are you going to be kind of diverse and kind of pick out what you are into at the moment and wear your heart on your sleeve? You're going to be more like Slayer, and I love Slayer, so don't start getting on me about Slayer. But you know it's a Slayer track when it doesn't matter what album from their canon it is, maybe with the exception of my favorite record of South of Heaven. But they had a style, and they wrote it till the wheels fell off. Lord love them. But you know, Rush wasn't that band. They were not going to be put in a box. They were not going to They weren't going to conform to what you wanted them to do. They were going to do all kinds of stuff.
But how many bands have tried to reinvent themselves or experiment with something different, and it didn't really work? Not this band.
Or it worked to the sheep, and the rest of us got left out in the lurch.
However
like
you want to look at it. Yeah.
The Black Album.
Rush tried many things to incorporate into their.
And you think would the wheels have fallen off Zeppelin if Bonham doesn't die? Would they have kept going? Would they have kept producing? You know, Coda wasn't widely observed as being a great record. I love In Through the Outdoor, but that was kind of looked at as being them going kind of soft.
I'm gonna say I don't know if they would have been as successful to the effect of Rush.
I don't think anyone's had a string of records in that amount of time that are that amazing.
I don't believe so.
Should we?
We
have
should
a
also
personal anecdote you would like to share about
I think
your Rush fandom?
I think I kind of incorporated it into my picks, and honestly, the truth is, Rush is still growing on me, if you can believe that. I think they always will, and I'm more about the music than the lyrics. The lyrics tend to be kind of how they fit in with the music and lyrical phrases that kind of tickle my ears, and sometimes it lights up my brain and I investigate what songs are about. But I'm the kind of person, I tend to like things to be mysterious. So I really appreciate your knowledge of that side of things. So I'm being a little esoteric. I just love Rush's music, and I also, before we're done, want to just say this is inspired by the passing of Neil Peart and
the Professor.
That was a big loss for many people, and yeah, just a hugely influential musician.
I will share a funny argument I got into over Rush. is a funny argument. I never got a chance to see them growing up. So you get into your adulthood and they decided to play this record in its entirety, and I wasn't gonna miss it. There's no way I was gonna miss it. So we bought tickets, me and a friend of mine bought tickets, and we went, and I was gonna bring the lithograph I bought. I have it framed in my house with the ticket. It looks amazing. Number 422. It was almost perfect. I was born on 423. Metal Maniac's back there laughing because he knows. I was born on 23. My favorite number is 23. I was so close. I even asked the guy, "Do you have 423? Can I just have that one?" It's really because I think he was expecting me to say 420.
Yeah.
Grow up, bro. So I got to see this record played in its entirety.
Man.
They played an entire set, took intermission, played this entire record, took an intermission, and played a whole nother set. Me and a friend go down to see them, and his brother, his girlfriend, and a friend of his brother's girlfriend come with us. So we're all sitting together. In the middle of this record being played in its entirety, she goes to the bathroom and get a beer. I am aghast at this moment. I'm transfixed on what is happening in front of me.
Yeah.
And she leaves. And I'm like, I don't know how to feel right now.
Yeah.
Like you're ruining this for me. Like, what are you doing? So we go to his brother's house afterwards, and we're awash in the glow of the amazingness of these three men and what they've accomplished. And I say to her very, very soft, I soften my tone sometimes because I come off a bit aggressive. Very softly, very succinctly, I ask her, "What the hell were you doing?" And her answer was so flippant, I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But it was something to the effect of, I just felt like I'd heard it and I wanted to get a beer, and at the time I was a drinker, I'm not much anymore, but there's no beer I want that's interrupting watching this. I was like, if all you want to do was listen to it, why didn't you save yourself $100 and listen to it at home? You go for the show. You don't go for
Was she as big of a Rush fan? Was she as familiar with the significance of that record for you?
I don't embrace excuses. I embrace solutions.
All right, well.
But that's my Rush anecdote. I got to see them live. It was unbelievably amazing.
I'm not going to comment on whether I ever saw them live.
It's tough. There's a lot of people that I would have loved to see. Luckily, having the Metal Maniac as a friend and him having older uncles, I got to see some things when I was young that I probably would not have had. We saw Maiden together. I think we saw Priest together. We're going to have him on this side of the camera eventually because he's too pretty to leave back there. But
you're right about that. Prettier than you.
He's one of those guys that we've been friends since our junior year of high school, and we were talking about it the other day. I think there was a little animosity at the beginning because he was a Pistons fan and I'm a Lakers fanatic. And when we started talking about music, it was like stepbrothers. Like, did we just become best friends?
Yeah.
And we've been best friends ever since. But he had a large impact on my the things I love. I'm going to get to one of his things that he turned me on to and that I absolutely love. Is my last pick of things you need to come into this store and get. I'm going to start off very underrated band out of LA during that whole hair metal scene. All females, the Pandoras. This is a great.
I happen to already know that you love
tape.
that.
Yeah, I actually upgraded to a CD thanks to my man and gave him the tape. This is amazing. Come pick it up. I see this every time I'm here. I always wish he'll break it up into 3 parts because I only need season 3. One of the greatest television shows ever. This is a gorgeous box set. Come and get this. This is such an amazing. This is what I wanted to do growing up. I wanted to be a wandering intellectual that just kicked ass. Based off an idea from the one and only Bruce Lee. Somehow David Carradine got to be in it, but he killed it. I love it. It's amazing. Come grab this before I do.
Anybody our age grew up watching this stuff.
Say what you will.
Say what you will.
It's Fastway.
If you
How
don't
do
know
you not love
Fastway,
Fastway?
tell them.
Who's the guitar player?
It's in the name of the band.
It's the Fast Eddie Clarke. After he left Motorhead, forms Fastway with Pete Way, who now sings for that Irish band,
Oh,
whose name escapes me.
why can't I think of that? What's he do?
I just Flogging Molly. He sings
Oh.
for Flogging Molly now, I believe.
That's right.
So
that's right.
great,
I
great,
know
great
about that.
'80s hard rock record. Come and pick this up. If you like Grease, you're doing it wrong because the superior film is Xanadu. This is the movie Grease wished it would have been. Olivia at her most beautiful, her best. Andy Gibb, hello. Greek gods, skating, ELO. ELO. I don't want to say anything after that. Come grab this, bro. If you're into VHS, you have to have this movie. Last, certainly not least, come and pick it up before I buy it and put it on my wall. Thanks to the Metal Maniac. Who do I love? Saxon. Say you cannot talk about the history of heavy metal without talking about Saxon. Still together, still cranking out records. Biff Byford sounds amazing still in his 70s, I think. This is just a great, unheralded, new wabum band, if you will.
Yeah.
New wave of British heavy metal. They're amazing. They don't get enough love. This is one of my absolute favorite records from theirs. And I think it's the first record that the Metal Maniac ever really gave me when I
Wow.
told him I didn't know who Saxon was. And I
Alright,
think he slapped me in the
alright.
face and was like, bro, go home and listen to this right now.
We're at some point we're gonna have to have.
Don't
a-
even
a-
don't even say it. Don't even say what I know you're
I
gonna
will
say.
say that while I dig Saxon a lot too, probably my pick would be Denim and Leather.
Love that album. Great album. Great album.
You
Can't
know,
go wrong with that album.
But
Thanks to Jay and
I
his
won't
uncles
mention
who
the
love
band
Saxon.
that I think is
You won't mention it ever
more-
again in my presence
Okay,
because that is a joke
but I will say
contrived.
this. But
This
I will,
is just
you
talking
are,
about the Saxon hordes invading
you are
England.
right. You are right.
Just an
These
amazing
guys-
piece of rock history.
These guys legitimately were doing this with this image and subject matter before the band I won't mention. But
and if you
we're
want
going
to
to talk
laugh,
about that band another time.
if you want to laugh, watch the video for Princess of the Night. I don't know what they were wearing, but I love the 80s. You got
Well-
5 picks from your wonderful store? You got
Well,
any picks?
actually,
it doesn't need to be 5.
Yeah, I don't have 5, but that's okay, and I'll try to keep it brief. I guess I'll start off with this: a German band called Bohren and Der Club of Gore. A band that started out, as far as I'm aware, not that I've ever heard any of their early music, but I believe they were more of a black metal type of band, who at some point decided to give it up, completely change their sound, even though probably hanging on to some of the same inspiration. They became what I like to call jazz noir, or kind of a black jazz. Like it's dark, it's heavy. This is some of the heaviest music that I know of, but it's a kind of a lounge jazz thing. And when I first heard them, my friend Anthony turned me on to them, and the first thing that rang in my mind was the music to Twin Peaks, composed by Angelo Badalamenti. The more you listen to these guys, you realize they don't really sound like what Badalamenti was doing, scoring Twin Peaks, but yet there is something very reminiscent of that, and it brings about that similar kind of chilling feeling you get from watching, if not the TV show, like Fire Walk with Me. Just ominous, dark, heavy jazz noir. It's awesome stuff, and it's been sitting in my bins. I
I'm
wish somebody
intrigued.
would come and check that out. This one I quickly picked because it was sitting out, and I posted this on the Works Instagram page. We have an official Instagram page that I just started. This is the first album by The Roots, very influential hip-hop group that
Questlove on
you
drums.
probably know. Questlove, They're Jimmy Fallon's
Yeah, Jimmy Fallon now.
band. This is where the Roots started. And it's called Organics. And this is a band that started in the era of the Far Side, Wu-Tang Clan, the early to mid 90s.
So you just punched me in my face with that, reminding me I missed the Wu-Tang Clan and had to sit through the Roots. Told you that story. Hurts
well,
me.
The Roots are still great. The Roots are awesome.
Questlove introduced Hall & Oates when Hall & Oates were inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Nice.
He did their
I
speech.
missed that. I missed
It's great.
that. Anyway, what I wanted to say about this one was this is post golden age of hip hop. This is the next era, taking you into the 90s. And I guess the main thing I want to say is they kind of redefined what a hip hop group was at the time. And nobody else has really replicated it. They were a live band of musicians.
They were a
Bass player,
very
keyboard
incredibly, a very
And-
great band.
And the last thing I'll say is
for
Black
lack of
Thought.
words.
Black Thought is one of the greatest lyrical flow masters.
Oh, I can't wait to get into that topic.
Uh,
We'll argue on that one.
well, we might argue.
Just because
we
you
might
call
not.
yourself Black Thought don't mean you're thinking.
Okay, well,
All right.
we might argue.
We're
might
gonna
not.
touch on that one on a future episode, I guarantee.
My final pick is this Thelonious Monk box set on CD. I know people don't buy CD box sets as much anymore, but if you love jazz, if you have an inclination about Thelonious Monk, this is worth it. This is $20 for 4 CDs worth of music. But the main reason to have this, in my opinion, is that there is a single CD that is hard to get anymore, and it was a recording at a jazz club called the Five Spot. And Thelonious Monk had an album called Live at the Five Spot that is not the one I'm referring to. Years later, a CD was put out that was another live date that he did, a little bit different personnel in his group, and that's what's on here. And so it's really hard to track down the single CD, but that's included in here, and it features John Coltrane on tenor sax and a brilliant jazz drummer who doesn't get mentioned as often as Max Roach or Art Blakey, named Roy Haynes. Roy Haynes is allowed to solo throughout this set, and he does monstrous jazz soloing of that jazz era. But what's beautiful about it is when Coltrane was coming up and he would play with other established jazz artists, let's say Miles Davis, Miles would put more control on what Coltrane was allowed to do within their sets. Thelonious was the opposite. He let Coltrane just take off and solo for as long as he wanted until he was ready to come back in and resume playing the piece of music. So anyway,
I equate those guys with.
I want somebody to buy this.
I equate those guys with metal. Like you got jazz, and then you've got Miles Davis, and these guys that are
Yeah.
like bringing it.
Probably
Like
in some
that's
way.
the metal of the
Probably
jazz.
in some way influential. I mean, especially if you take like a shredding type of guitarist or a lead guitarist who solos. You know, improvisational soloing comes from this stuff right here.
Well, I appreciate your time once again.
Well,
Your debate.
Thanks for letting
You
me
have
talk.
parting shots for our viewers.
We're just getting started with this video series talking about our favorite music, and we're working out some kinks. We're getting used to talking to you through this camera and trying to be interesting. This guy is kind of spearheading it, and I appreciate it very much, and kind of has maybe some clearer thoughts than I do at 10 in the morning. But we're just going to keep trying to do this and you know, hopefully provide something that's fun for people to watch and listen to.
Awesome. Thank you for watching.
tuning
If
in.
you feel the urge, come on down, pick something out. Not just that. Talk to this guy. Maybe you will have suggestions for future shows. Wherever you're
Yeah.
watching this from,
Yeah.
support independent music sellers. Yeah, you can get whatever you want on eBay and Amazon, but you really want to give Jeff Bezos any more of your money? support your local independent record stores. That's where the love comes from.
Yeah.
Support physical media. And for this guy, for me, for the Metal Maniac behind the camera, we love you. We'll see you next time. Thank you.